So, today we're going to dive into this really beautiful and I think profound spiritual metaphor. It's all about our inner self, that inner struggle we all feel, and this idea of surrender. Think of it as a story about a little muddy pond that wants more than anything to become the big, clear sky. Let's jump in.
So the whole thing kicks off with this really powerful image. You've got the divine, right? The source of, well, everything. And it's pictured as this huge, infinite cloud. It's just vast, it's pure. And it gives this life-giving rain to everyone and everything, totally freely, without asking for anything back.
Okay, so this whole metaphor really hinges on two big ideas, two symbols. We've just met the first one, the infinite cloud. But what's its opposite? Well, that's where the small, muddy pond comes in.
And wow, when you put them side by side, the difference is just stark. It couldn't be more obvious. On one hand, you've got the cloud. That's the divine, right? It's huge, it's pure. And on the other hand, you have the pond. That's us. That's our hearts, our inner self. But here's the thing. It's not a clear pond. It's all muddy. And that mud, that's our ego. It's all our attachments, our fears, our jealousies, all that stuff. The pond is small, it's contained, and frankly, it's pretty murky.
So what happens when something comes along and stirs up all that mud in our little pond, in our inner self? Well, that's where we get to the real heart of the conflict here, the struggle of the ego.
I mean, life happens, right? The world shakes us up, and when it does, all that mud that was sitting at the bottom of our heart, the ego, the fear, all of it, it gets all stirred up. And just like that, any clarity we had is gone. Our inner world just becomes this cloudy, confused mess.
And what's our first reaction when that happens? Our first instinct? We try to fix it, of course. We put in all this effort. We think, I'm just going to try to love. I'm going to force myself to feel pure and good.
Or, I'm going to try to be pure. I'm just going to struggle and fight and get rid of all this mud, clean up the water, just by using my own willpower.
But, and this is the huge paradox at the center of it all, the very act of trying, that struggle against the mud, it just stirs it up even more. The harder we fight, the more frantic our effort, the muddier and murkier that water gets. We're actually making it worse.
And that's really the key takeaway here, isn't it? This whole struggle to grab onto and control how we feel inside, it's completely counterproductive. It doesn't get you to clarity. No way. It just leads to total exhaustion. It leaves the pond, our inner self, feeling completely empty and dry.
So you're stuck in this cycle, right? Struggle, failure, and eventually that leads to a huge turning point, a real aha moment. It's a moment of insight where you suddenly see the whole problem in a completely different light.
I mean, think about it. It's a totally impossible task. How in the world can a tiny muddy pond just leap up into the air and become the vast, infinite sky? The question itself is kind of ridiculous, right? And that's the point. It shows you just how absurd the ego's whole project really is.
And that is what leads to the great realization. It hits you. The problem isn't actually the mud. Nope. The problem is the I that is trying so damn hard to get rid of the mud. That striving, struggling ego, that's the source of the whole mess.
Okay, so if trying is the problem, then what's the solution? What are we supposed to do? Well, the answer lies in this practice called samarpa. It's a totally different path forward.
Samarpan basically means surrender. But hang on, this is not about giving up or waving a white flag. It's not about defeat. It's actually an active choice. It's you deciding to stop fighting a battle that you were never going to win anyway. It's about stopping all that frantic, useless effort from the ego.
So how do you do it? Well, this practice breaks down into 4 really powerful ways of letting go. First, you surrender the why. You just stop asking, why am I a pond and not the rain? You just accept what you are. Second, you surrender the when. You let go of any deadlines for when your heart is supposed to be clean. Third, you surrender the what. This means letting go of all your expectations about what grace or peace should look or feel like. And then finally, the big one, you surrender the who. You offer up that very sense of I that feels so separate from everything else. So what happens? What happens when you actually do this? When the surrender is complete, what does that little pond become once it finally stops struggling? Well, this is where we get to the really beautiful part, the state of grace.
The first thing that happens is just stillness. You stop fighting.
And by stopping the struggle, you just allow all that mud, the ego, the fears, the attachments, to just naturally settle. It just drifts down to the bottom on its own.
And as all that stuff settles down, the water starts to get calm. The surface, which isn't being churned up by all that frantic effort anymore, it just becomes perfectly still and clear.
And this is the final amazing transformation. In that total stillness, the pond isn't reflecting its own mud anymore. It can't. Instead, its clear, calm surface becomes a perfect, silent mirror. And what does it reflect? Not the mud, but the huge, infinite sky above it. See, the self doesn't have to become the divine. In that stillness, it can perfectly reflect it.
So that really leaves us with a pretty powerful question for our own lives, doesn't it? In all our own personal struggles with our own mud, what do you think would happen if we just stopped? What if we shifted all that energy from frantic trying to a state of quiet, patient allowing? What might you begin to reflect?